Howdy, motherfuckers. I hope you have had a fantastic day. Welcome back to MCubed. My name is Harris, and I am your host, and today we are not back with another Ticket or Skip It. Today, we are back with an MCubed-Grade review, of course. This one will have spoilers in it, and it will tell you how I feel about a particular episode of something or a particular film. And just like Ticket or Skip It, we usually go over 4 questions there, and now we're gonna have 10 tenets that we're gonna go over. And we're gonna give this TV show or a film a score out of 1 to 10. Now, those 10 tenets are production design, score and soundtrack, the sound, the editing, the effects, cinematography, casting, acting, writing, and lastly, direction. Now today we're going over Netflix's brand new series, The Sandman, based on Neil Gaiman's comics. I personally have never read the comics, but I know a few people that have, and I've gotten the recommendations to read them many a time. Now let me go ahead and get into it. Production design. Okay, so this is where I believe a little bit falters, just because it is a very CGI heavy thing, and that's not a bad thing by any means. Most TV series of this type tend to be CGI heavy nowadays, but it's a little too CGI heavy. I would like a little more real world, at least a larger scope. The production design didn't feel large while it was large, and it didn't feel that large. I think part of that is just because we stayed inside of the castle or manor, whatever it may be. We stayed just a little bit in Dreamworld. We didn't linger in Dreamworld all too much, and it seemed like a really cool spot, especially at the end, and how the regrowth of everything is going to pan out. I would say the production design, I won't give it a full point, but I'm gonna give it a half a point. Now, the score and the soundtrack. So far, I haven't really heard that much of a soundtrack per se, and the score, not to say it's not good by any means, but I haven't noticed anything in the score that grabbed me. And usually I want something that's going to grab me and make that scene, or make the entire episode, or make the entire film way that much heavier. So score and soundtrack, I'll give it another half of a point. So we're up to 1. It's at least a 1 out of 10 so far. So our third tenet is sound. Now, sound is different than score and soundtrack, of course. Score and soundtrack have to be made after the fact. Where sound, of course, a lot of it is done in camera. There's a lot of sound that just kind of comes from the set itself. And if it doesn't, it comes from ideas that may have come on set. And you can kind of feel that a little more naturally. I feel like the sound, I will give it a full point because it was really good. You know, there's dust blowing. That gunshot on the Raven. Jamasa, something like that. I don't know. But the Raven was a great death. Sad death. But it was a good noise. The pecking right before it was, the banging of the head afterwards, all of the sound added up, and each little bit of added sound added to the story, which it should. So it gets a full point from me. Now, going on, we are up to 2 out of 10. Not too shabby, eh? Next up, we have editing. As we all know, editing is extremely important when it comes to anything within the film industry, within the television industry, within radio and broadcasting industry. Some things just need to be edited sometimes. Not everybody can just do everything off of a whim. Me included. The editing in this, I think, did a fantastic job. There are time jumps that the editor has to kind of jump around, per se, alongside. I really like Boyd Holbrook's Corinthian, I believe is his name, but the editor is doing a good job of not over-showing and not over-telling and giving us just what we need right now. I appreciate that a lot. I think the editing, if it stays to this degree, I will be extremely happy with it. So far, we are a solid 3 out of 10. Our 5th tenet happens to be effects. Effects is kind of a very general term. It could be practical, it could be visual. I think roping those together in the categories as of now is the way to do that, and I think I will give the effects a full 1 because they're very, very subtle at the moment. You can tell Sandman, the Dream the Elder, I believe is his actual name. I think he has a lot of effects, both practical and CGI on him, because he doesn't look 100% human. I believe I heard the actor talking about on an interview that he got a bunch of white makeup all over his face. They tried a bunch of different things, prosthetics and all these different things. With what they landed on, from not ever reading the comics or knowing it from the source material, I think it looks great. The sets and scope could have been larger, of course, but I feel like all of the effects that we've been given so far have been excellent, including the CGI. So if that gets a full 1 as well, I believe that puts us up to a 4 out of 10 and brings us to our 6th tenet, which is cinematography. I'm gonna actually give it another half a point. Now, the reason I'm giving it a half a point is just because of production design again. I think it's a scope issue. It seems like we are traveling all across the globe. We're also following Corinthians, and I'm not entirely positive how he gets around. I know we saw him travel in an older vehicle back in the day, but I'm sure he's got a cool motorcycle or some teleportation powers or something. I'm not positive, and I'm interested and intrigued going forward, figuring out how we are going to traverse this land. But I'd like to see a little more land and see a little more scale for a cinematographer to play with. The cinematography that we got was just fine, and it was dandy, but it's confined within a house and within areas with green screens. It didn't have much room to breathe, is probably where I'll go there. So I'm going to give it a half a point. And that brings us to our 7th tenet with a score of 4.5 out of 10 so far. So our 7th tenet happens to be casting. Now, did they do a good job casting here? I can't think of the guy that plays the Sandman off the top of my head yet. By the end of the series, I'm sure I'll have his name down pat. I think he did great. I mean, he only had a few lines kind of at the beginning and at the very end. He was the narrator, and then is talking to Lucienne, I believe, at the end. And both of them are cast fantastically. Lucienne looks cool. I think that's a cool character concept as of now. I'm intrigued to see where she goes. And I'm also intrigued with the Sandman himself. I really like Boyd Holbrook as Corinthian. Anything Boyd Holbrook does is good. He always brings his A game. I am interested to see where he goes. So far, the things I've seen and the brief people that we've seen just for, I assume, this episode. I mean, Charles Dance. I didn't expect him to pop up in the series. Please, if there's any more Charles Dance, I'll be ecstatic. But I'm okay with what we got, honestly, as well. So yeah, casting gets a full 1 for me. So as we roll into our 8th tenet, and our next one happens to be acting. Now, was the acting good in this series? Well, we haven't really seen a whole bunch, I guess, from our main and pivotal cast so far. It's been kind of our flashbacks, maybe, I think, with Charles Dance and Alex and his father. But the acting so far has been fantastic. It's been small in scale, but I think that has allowed the actors to do a lot with the little bit they've been given, because it's pieced out and I feel like stitched and put together very precisely and purposefully right now, and I'm happy. So I'm gonna give it a full 1, and that brings us up to a 6.5 out of 10. And that brings us to our 9th tenet, which happens to be the writing. If it was stitched together in a purposeful way, yeah, that writing's good. I'm giving that a full 1, and I think that's because they are handling multiple time periods while also it helps staying in the perspective of the Sandman, Dream the Elder himself, because I really think it helps bridge the continuity gap, similar to how Foundation, for their television series on Apple Plus, they invented a clone dynasty instead of just skipping 300 years in the future, 500 years in the future, whatever it might be. I think that type of plot device helps further the story along without being too much of a plot device. I think the writing's really well done, and I can tell that Neil Gaiman helped out a little bit, because you got the Gaiman-esque feel to it, and I like that. So 7.5 out of 10 is not too bad. Now, our final tenet happens to be direction. Now, kind of similar with the way the writing was handled, very purposefully, I think the direction is similar. I think the director did a really good job of translating what Neil Gaiman probably wanted to the screen. And that, I think, deserves accolade, because it's very hard to do. I'm not entirely convinced with the scope of said world yet, but what we've been given so far has brought me exactly where I would like to be, and it's intrigued me already. If you can't tell, I've already said that word 15 times. I want to know what happens next. But so far, I think this one gets a full extra 1 point, the full point here, and that brings us to 8.5 out of 10. Not too shabby. That's a perfect 85. Right now, this is an easy way for me just to kind of judge and grade and categorize this in my own head, and I hope it helps you as well. Now, if you are a friend of this channel and would like to support us, we are actually affiliates with this company called Woozer.
Woozers are a haptic feedback sound listening device, and these things are the coolest thing in the world. This thing jams along with you to your music, gives you your own personal bass within your own body, essentially uses your body as a subwoofer. I don't know if that's the correct science or anything, but that's what it feels like. And I love these things. It makes movies, music, and video games just infinitely more fun. It's the coolest thing in the world with movies.
So if you're interested in getting a Woozer, we have the affiliate link down in the description. And if you are interested in helping our channel as we become less and less of a baby channel and more of a toddler channel, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Tell us what you liked about the first episode or what you didn't like about the first episode of Sandman. Am I off? Did I give it way too good of a score? You let me know down in the comments below. And without further ado, I hope you have a great day and come back and see us again. I don't know, that might be dumb, but he blows sand all the time, so that could be cool.